I finally got around to watching Netflix's Inside Job, the animated series,
Listen up, kids. Everything they teach you in school is a lie.
and I was thoroughly entertained by it. I've seen that a lot of truthers, conspiracy theorists took issue with the show. They thought that the show was mocking truth, mocking conspiracy theory, but if you actually evaluated the subject matter, whoever wrote it had to at least absorb themselves in the material.
You want the truth? The world is controlled by shadowy elites and shape-shifting lizard people.
There were so many tiny little Easter eggs and little nods, little nuances that took place that if it was just somebody that came along to mock everybody, some of that little intricate detail wouldn't be there. It's like they understood the mind. They had to have at least had some interest in it.
Has retirement made you go completely insane?
No, but the 5G radio waves in the air have.
And I didn't feel insulted at all watching the show. Again, I was completely entertained. It reminded me of like a mix between Rick and Morty meets American Dad meets Futurama. And I mean, I really didn't watch American Dad or Futurama that much, but I did watch Rick and Morty. But the pacing felt familiar, and like the insert of the jokes felt familiar.
Dad, I know retirement is tough, but there's more positive ways to get my attention than taking down the deep state.
But my point to talk about this is to talk about the truthers that are upset with the show. I mean, this is kind of like what gives truthers a bad look. It's like, have a sense of humor. Be thrilled that a show like this exists, that there's going to be a whole bunch of people that haven't been spending all their time doing research that are going to watch the show and get exposed to some of these concepts.
Democracy is real!
Now, without a frame of reference, most of this stuff would fly right over their head anyway. But there'll be a percentage of them that might, the ideas, they'll now be introduced to it, especially the idea of like a deep state organization that conspires to control the world. There's so many people that don't believe that that's actually occurring.
And the White House is called the People's House because in America, the government works for you.
And if they see it through the course of 8 episodes, it reinforces and normalizes this concept.
You can't tell people that the government isn't real.
But it's not.
Dr. Ridley?
You don't get the ones that are upset with the show. You don't understand. This show helps you. I know you think it hurts you. For instance, when Behind the Curve came out for Flat Earth with Mark Sargent, a large percentage faction of the Flat Earthers were upset that movie came out. No, that movie made us look stupid, and Jaren's experiment at the end failed. And it's like, okay, but what you don't know, see, I guess if Flat Earthers just stay in their own little club, in their own circle, and they don't interact with people outside of it, well, one, that's behaving like a cult. But two, when Behind the Curve came out on Netflix, that was the majority of people I know, that was their first interaction or consumption of any Flat Earth material. Now, yes, it made it look silly. The test failed at the end. But I guess for truthers, your mind has been so removed out of thinking like a normie. It normalized Behind the Curve, whether you believe it or not. It normalized Flat Earth.
Trouble on the horizon today as believers in the flat Earth theory protested outside the National Air and Space Museum.
So because of that, you should be thrilled about it. Kyrie Irving mentioning it with LeBron James that one time.
And if he decides he wants to say the Earth is flat, then so be it.
Hey, Kyrie, Earth's flat, right? Yeah, that's news.
Kyrie, the Earth is flat, right? Yeah. So, whatever. That's news.
See? Now, some flat earthers were upset with that. When Shaq said that, yeah, man, that the Earth's flat. I drove from coast to coast, the Earth is flat. And then came out and took it back. All those are normalizing things. And if you're upset by those things, you're forgetting the 3 stages of truth. First, they ridicule you. Then they fight you or whatever. Then they accept it or whatever. I forgot what the 3 steps are, but one of those 3 steps are first they ridicule you. And if you can't get past the ridicule stage, then Or the other side is where you want to just keep it into this little tiny cult and then get mad when the rest of the world doesn't see what you see, but yet you don't want to mainstream the whole thing.
The Earth's not round, it is flat. We are here to protest that.
My God, this flat Earth nonsense. Why do conspiracies keep getting stupider?
So there are sacrifices. Another video I made on my other channel was talking about how in order for video gaming and gaming to become gamers and gaming and an industry of gaming and the $1 billion plus whatever bigger than Hollywood, they had to make the games dumb. They had to take the skill level down and make them less challenging in order for it to appeal to a larger audience. And it was said in advance that this is what they were going to do, that it was going to alienate the original gamers, but it's going to bring in a flock of new people. Now, as a flat earther, wouldn't you be thrilled if the whole world finally saw things your way?
If they only knew the obvious truth. The earth isn't flat, it's hollow and filled with mole people, sea monsters, and that family from Land of the Lost.
When I participated in the ufology UFO community, there were so many people in ufology that got mad at like Dan Burrish and Al Bielek and Bob Lazar, and they failed to see like these are the people that are going to popularize aliens. And they were also mad at Ancient Aliens because of Giorgio Tsoukalos' hair, and everything was blamed on aliens. And David Childress, there was some kind of sky, and they thought all that ridiculed them. And it's like, dude, do you not understand that people already think you're nuts for believing in aliens? And you don't understand that Ancient Aliens is popularizing and normalizing aliens, which makes your life easier, which makes you less of a nut job, because now Katy Perry is tweeting about how she watches Ancient Aliens. Ancient Aliens made aliens cool and acceptable and normalized.
Can't talk about shape-shifting reptiles.
Good morning, Senator.
Revenues and
So now, I think I've beaten that dead horse, but I want to point this out that part of the mainstreaming is these kind of things, and when you reject it. So Inside Job, a bunch of truthers rejected the show, and that's the target audience for the show. So if the target audience is giving it a thumbs down, there won't be any season 2.
Can't tell people the weather is controlled by Gerald from accounting.
And there won't be any traction for the show. And thus this attempt, this gift that was given to truthers won't be spread. There won't be any word of mouth, and no one's going to hear it, no one's going to see the show, and nothing gets normalized.
Or that the Dow Jones is controlled by blood sacrifices.
Shares of JP Morgan Chase up 14 points! Wow!
Now, as somebody that I've been into truth longer than you. I've been into truth probably since 1980 something. I can't tell the exact date. I used to watch Sightings. I had the Time Life, the Mysteries of the Unknown books whenever those came out. So whenever those came out, maybe that's when it began. I mean, it really began in like 1982 for me. But I'll give you this one. 1989, I watched the Bob Lazar excerpts from the government Bible VHS, and my life's never been the same. I was like 10 years old. And so I've seen all the stages of this, and I could tell you, Joe Rogan having Bob Lazar on made that Netflix show that with Jeremy, I forgot his last name. Rogan normalized, humanized Lazar, and for me, who's been a lifetime Lazar supporter and fan, it gave me the victory finally after 30 years that he finally got his shine on, because the ufologists that take themselves too serious all would get mad at me. Why are you supporting Lazar? I'm like, because he's the only one he's the guy that actually told us about Area 51. Everybody of the researchers and the ones that are studying the data, it's all secondhand data. Lazar said he personally experienced these things. To me, the experiencer is much more important than the guy in the suit like Stanton Friedman, who's just giving you statistics. But whatever, right? That's just me. But these are the different factions of UFO politics. There's the experiencers and then the researchers. The researchers want to wear suits and act all professional, and the experiencers are okay with like, hey man, I had a paranormal experience, and hey, you could think I'm nuts, you could ridicule it, but eventually, see, Lazar went through all the stages: the ridicule, the they'll fight you, then they accept you. And now Lazar has finally, after 30 years, been accepted. Now, this is supposed to be about Inside Job, but how could I talk about Inside Job, the show, without all the stuff that I just talked about?
Rules, rules, rules. When did this become such a boring place to work?
Just watch the first 5 minutes of the first episode of Inside Jobs, that they replaced the president with a robot.
That means no huffing chemtrails. No using drones to spy on your ex-wife.
That's episode 1. Episode 2, The Clone Gunman. When an expensive blunder forces budget cuts at Cognito Inc., the deep state, JR orders Reagan and Brett to decide which of their coworkers should be fired.
Co-lead?
Brett, you can take that silly thing off now that we've microchipped you.
Brett Hand, thrilled to be serving whoever gives me approval.
So it introduces the idea that there's clone factories or people or clones held in a lab somewhere. So you get to see all that. All that idea gets presented in the face.
And no taking selfies on the moon landing set.
Top secret isn't a thing for 8s and above, Reagan.
Episode 3, Blue Bloods. So this one is showing that the deep state is ran by reptilian aliens.
Since the dawn of time, the world has been ruled by a cabal of ancient elites.
And they're a complete separate race from the humans, and they have all the money. So here's the description. After a lizard people related PR disaster, the team must do damage control at the swanky Reptoid Gala, where hugs are required.
Ever wondered who watches you through your laptop camera? Or why there's sometimes product placement in your dreams?
All right, so totally enjoyable, and the character development of the writers did an excellent job. If you're into writing, if you know character development.
So how did you get this job?
Honestly, I graduated Yale, top of my frat, spent some time as a lobbyist because I love lobbies, and last weekend I was at a barbecue with JR, and he said he liked how firm my handshake was. Next thing you know, they're throwing a bag over my head, and then boom!
Settings, they did a fantastic job. So to hate on this, at least for the prose or the writing capability, great show.
But puppeteering the world isn't as easy as it used to be. That's why we formed this company, to enact our overlord's mysterious whims for a better tomorrow.
Episode 4, the title of it's just called Episode 4. There's no more names. After Cognito Inc. buys a dating app, Reagan bets her team she could find a boyfriend and creates a robot version of her perfect match to practice on.
We are Cognito Inc., and we've got you covered. Up!
Any questions?
So it goes into algorithms and shows all the spy data, that everything. Another good episode. Episode 5. Brett hopes to have a blast in the past as the team embarks on a nostalgia-laced mission to a small town that's permanently stuck in the 1980s. So this introduces the idea of, not quite breakaway civilizations that have off-world tech, but people that are kept out of, like little small areas that are kept out of the rest of the civilization to observe. You get the idea. Plus the whole idea of the 80s nostalgia, and they did a pretty good job tying it all together. Episode 6, Reagan conspires to keep her dad from finding out about her mom's wedding while JR ropes Brett into a personal mission to help offload his mega yacht. All right, so what they didn't tell you in the synopsis is it's called My Flat Earth Wedding. That's the title of the episode. And Flat Earthers hijack the yacht that has Jeff Bezos.
I saw your protest on the news. You really showed those globalists who's boss.
After years of being ridiculed for our beliefs, it's so nice to have someone on our side that's a respected scientist and not just a respected NBA player.
All right, so at this point, the battery on my camera died. I just wanted to give a shout out to Inside Job. It's a funny show. It's made for truthers to enjoy. It's entertainment. It's entertainment right up your alley on the topics that you've been learning about. Give it a chance. Don't take yourself too serious. Don't take the show too serious. Enjoy the show. Or not. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I wanted to pass it on to you and endorse it. So, may the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one.